They say time heals all wounds, but betrayal laughs in the face of that lie. You can survive heartbreak, loss, even failure. But betrayal? It changes you in ways that words can't quite capture. Because when someone you trusted turns against you, it's not just your heart that breaks. It's your sense of safety in the world. Betrayal cuts deeper than any visible wound. It's not the kind of pain you can treat with ice, rest, or medicine. It's an ache that settles quietly inside your chest, heavy, burning, and silent. Unlike a bruise or a broken bone, the scars it leaves behind don't fade with time. They reshape how you see the world, how you love, how you trust, and even how you value yourself. I know that pain intimately. I've lived through it. I've watched someone I trusted completely. Someone who knew my fears, my dreams, my private hopes, turn against me in a way I never thought possible. And when that happens, something inside you doesn't just crack, it shifts. You stop trusting others, yes, but worse, you start doubting yourself. You replay every conversation, every small sign you missed, whispering to yourself, "How did I not see it coming?" That's the real poison of betrayal. It doesn't only destroy your faith in others, it weakens your belief in your own judgment. In Stoic philosophy, there's no sugarcoating this kind of truth. We don't comfort ourselves with soft lies about mistakes or accidents when the act was intentional. Stoics face reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. And some betrayals are so deliberate, so corrosive, that they simply cannot and should not be forgiven, not out of vengeance, not out of bitterness, but because forgiving them would mean betraying yourself, your peace, your dignity, your self-respect. And there's nothing stoic about abandoning your own worth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change." But betrayal isn't correction, it's corruption. When someone chooses to deceive or harm you, they reveal who they truly are. And once you see that truth, the line they crossed can never be redrawn. I've learned that some doors must stay closed, permanently. Because closure doesn't always mean reconciliation. It means accepting what happened, choosing peace over chaos, and truth over illusion. Forgiveness can be a virtue, but never when it costs your inner peace. A Stoic learns to release what they cannot control, including the choices of those who've hurt them. But letting go doesn't mean letting them back in. It means guarding your peace with boundaries that no one can shake. Today I want to share 4 forms of betrayal that cross those sacred lines, acts so intentional and destructive that they demand complete closure. Because if you want to build real emotional resilience and protect your inner life from toxic people, this lesson is not optional. If you're ready to take that step toward true freedom, the kind no one can steal from you, then let's begin. 1. Disloyalty, the ultimate violation of trust. I once knew a man named David. He was in his early 50s, the kind of person who treated loyalty like a sacred vow. He built his entire life around the belief that if you gave your loyalty wholeheartedly, it would be returned in kind. David had a close friend of over 20 years, a man he considered a brother. They raised their kids side by side, spent holidays together, and stood by each other through every hardship. But one day, David discovered that this friend had been quietly undermining him, spreading lies, twisting stories, and tarnishing his reputation for personal gain. It wasn't an impulsive mistake. It was calculated, patient, hidden beneath the smiling mask of friendship. And when David finally confronted him, the friend didn't show remorse, only excuses. David's confrontation ended in silence. The man who once called himself a brother began weaving excuses, stress, miscommunication, misunderstandings. He blamed everything except himself, but deep down David knew. The truth stood there, cold and undeniable. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a choice. And that single choice revealed everything David needed to know about who his friend truly was. Loyalty isn't some outdated ideal we dust off when it's convenient. It's the cornerstone of every meaningful bond, whether in friendship, love, or business. Without it, trust collapses. The sense of safety disappears, and what once felt like an unbreakable connection becomes nothing more than an empty shell. When someone you've trusted chooses disloyalty, it's never a random mistake. It's a mirror showing you who they are when they think you're not looking. A spouse who hides an affair. A business partner quietly draining your hard-earned profits. A sibling twisting the truth to gain favor at your expense. These aren't accidents. They're deliberate betrayals, acts of self-interest placed above loyalty, above love, above honor. The Stoics understood this side of human nature with striking clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And that wisdom still echoes today. Because when betrayal strikes, our first instinct often screams for revenge. We want them to feel the sting we felt, to hurt as we hurt. But Stoicism calls us to something greater, something far more difficult: self-mastery. You cannot control how people treat you. You can only control what you allow from them. The most powerful response to betrayal isn't revenge, it's removal. Quiet, dignified removal. The calm act of stepping away without rage or spectacle. Because once you've seen someone's true colors, you no longer need to argue about the pattern. They've already shown you who they are. And here's the painful truth. People who betray you and later come crawling back with apologies are often not sorry for what they did. They're sorry they got caught. Their words may sound sincere, their faces may show regret. But look closer. Is their remorse born from empathy or fear? From guilt? Or from the discomfort of losing access to your trust? A person who betrays you once and shows no sign of true change will almost always betray you again. Forgiving repeated disloyalty doesn't make you virtuous. It teaches them that your boundaries can be crossed without consequence. That's not peace. That's surrender. That's self-betrayal disguised as compassion. David wrestled with this truth. For a long time, he wanted to believe in the friendship he thought they shared. He told himself stories to fill the silence. But one day, something inside him shifted. He realized that clinging to someone who had betrayed him wasn't loyalty. It was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of facing the emptiness left behind. Yet when he finally stepped back, he discovered something unexpected. Peace. The absence of someone who disrespected his trust was infinitely better than the presence of someone who only pretended to value him. Stoicism teaches us to face reality, even when it cuts deep. It reminds us that it's far better to stand alone in truth than to be surrounded by those whose loyalty is merely a performance. Seneca once advised, "Associate with those who will make you a better man." He didn't mean flawless people. No one is flawless. He meant honest people, those who stand beside you in both light and darkness, those whose loyalty remains even when there's nothing left to gain. Psychologically, betrayal doesn't just wound your faith in others. It cracks your faith in yourself. You begin to question your judgment, your worth, even your ability to see people clearly. That's why walking away from betrayal isn't really about punishing them. It's about healing you. It's about reclaiming your self-respect. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, "I may have trusted the wrong person once, but I will not do it again." Sometimes acceptance is the hardest lesson. At the end of David's story, we saw that walking away wasn't about coldness or revenge. It was about clarity. The Stoic path isn't about becoming detached or unfeeling. It's about seeing reality without distortion. You don't have to hate those who betrayed you, but you do have to release them. You don't have to force forgiveness just to move on. You simply have to make peace with what happened and firmly decide never to let it happen again. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. And it's that wisdom, quiet, calm, unshakable, that sets you free. 2. Deception, the poison that destroys relationships. There's a story I've never forgotten, one that perfectly captures the essence of human deceit, the story of Julius Caesar and Brutus. Brutus wasn't just a conspirator plotting a political coup. He was Caesar's friend, his confidant, the man who dined with him, laughed with him, and listened as Caesar spoke of dreams for Rome. And yet, with a knife in his hand, Brutus committed the ultimate betrayal. But the knife wasn't the most painful wound. It was the lie behind it. Brutus's betrayal didn't begin on the Senate floor. It began long before, in whispered conversations, silent nods, and smiles that hid deceit. It was built over time, quietly, patiently, beneath the surface of what looked like loyalty. And that's the tragedy of deception. It never starts with blood. It starts with trust. This story repeats itself again and again in our own lives, in friendships, relationships, and workplaces. Lies are not just words. They're weapons, sharp, subtle, and often wrapped in warmth. They don't destroy trust with an explosion. They rot it slowly from the inside until one day everything you thought was solid collapses. We like to believe we can recognize a liar, that we'd somehow sense the danger before it strikes. But deception is powerful precisely because it hides behind familiarity. It builds connection first. It makes you feel safe. Then, piece by piece, it rewrites your reality. One small manipulation at a time. And when the truth finally comes out, it's not only the liar you lose, it's your faith in your own judgment. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was once a friend I trusted completely. Charming, persuasive, always ready to help. For years, I believed he was exactly who he claimed to be, loyal, steady, dependable. Someone I could turn to in the dark, but there were signs. Small, almost invisible cracks I chose to ignore. Little inconsistencies in his stories. Moments when his words didn't match his actions. At the time, I brushed them off. Maybe he's just tired, I tell myself. Maybe I'm overthinking. Until one day, everything came crashing down. I discovered he had been twisting information behind my back for years, crafting a version of events that served his own agenda. It wasn't one lie. It was a web, carefully spun, layered, and maintained with precision. And in that moment, I realized something deeply painful. The real damage wasn't just what he did. It was that I believed him for so long. This is where Stoicism faces the truth head-on. The Stoics taught that truth isn't a luxury. It's the foundation of peace. Seneca once warned, "A dishonest man first lies to others, then to himself." And he was right. A liar doesn't just distort your understanding of reality. They eventually lose control of their own. They start to live in the very illusion they created. And if you stay close to them, they'll drag you into that illusion too. Because lies are never isolated. They form patterns and habits of control. When someone lies to you, they're not merely hiding facts. They're shaping your perception. They're deciding which version of reality you're allowed to see. And that manipulation of truth is the deepest form of betrayal. Even modern psychology agrees deception is rooted in power and control. Liars manipulate because it gives them an advantage. It helps them dodge accountability, climb higher, and protect their fragile egos. But beneath that manipulation lies something smaller, sadder: insecurity. Because at their core, most liars don't believe they can earn love, success, or respect through honesty. So they build a world of illusion instead, one that eventually collapses under the weight of its own deceit. Deception always hides behind one thing: insecurity. Beneath every manipulative smile and carefully constructed story lies a person who quietly believes they are not enough. They don't think they deserve love, success, or respect through honest means. So they twist the truth, reshaping it to protect the fragile image they believe others expect to see. But understanding why someone lies does not mean you have to accept it. Empathy does not require tolerance. Some people will tell you everyone lies a little, or that harmless white lies are just part of being human. But Stoicism rejects that illusion, because a lie that cracks trust isn't small, and a lie that makes you doubt someone's integrity or your own judgment is anything but harmless. It's a signal, a red flag waving in silence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That is the standard the Stoic holds, both for oneself and for the company one keeps. When you uncover a lie, whether it's a partner concealing betrayal beneath layers of charm, a friend bending the truth for personal gain, or a colleague stealing credit and rewriting history to climb higher, the Stoic response is clear. Do not chase explanations. Do not beg for honesty from someone who has already shown they value deceit over truth. Accept what has been revealed. Then detach, not with anger, not with revenge, but with clarity, because a liar has no place within your inner circle. Trust, once fractured, never returns in its original form, no matter how sincere the apology sounds. And if you welcome them back without consequence, you send a message far louder than words, that your boundaries are flexible, that your standards can be bargained with. That is not forgiveness. That is self-betrayal. Walking away will never feel easy. It often feels like loss, especially when you once saw that person as irreplaceable. But the price of keeping a liar in your life is far heavier than the pain of letting them go. You pay for it with your peace of mind, with your self-respect, and with the constant shadow of doubt that follows every word they speak. Epictetus warned, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." A liar lives trapped in that illusion. They believe they already know what's best, that their version of reality is justified. And that belief makes them dangerous. In the end, the Stoic way is not to fix the liar. It is to protect your peace, to walk away, not bitter but wise, to understand that honesty is the cornerstone of any relationship worth keeping. And when that cornerstone is removed, the structure collapses. At that point, the only wise thing left to do is step away from the ruins and begin again, this time building on the solid foundation of truth. Because peace built on integrity will always be worth more than any connection built on lies. 3. Broken trust. The irreparable damage that ends. All bonds trust. It's invisible, yet it holds everything together. It's more than believing someone's words. It's the quiet safety that lets you reveal the parts of yourself you hide from the world, your fears, your hopes, your doubts. When that trust is broken, it doesn't just hurt. It dismantles everything you thought was solid. What once felt secure now feels hollow. Questions replace comfort. Doubt replaces peace. I've seen it happen to others, and I've lived it myself. And here's what I've learned through pain and experience. Some fractures can never be repaired. There is no going back. No apology deep enough, no gesture grand enough. No amount of time long enough to rebuild what's been shattered at its foundation. Think of Lance Armstrong. Once a hero. Admired not only for his victories, but for his story of resilience and triumph over adversity. He wasn't just trusted. He was believed in. And when that trust broke, it wasn't just his reputation that fell. It was the belief people had in him, the invisible bond between truth and admiration that disintegrated. Because once trust collapses, even glory cannot rebuild it. Trust, once broken, never returns the same. In the last story, we saw how betrayal can destroy even the strongest image. Lance Armstrong wasn't just an athlete. He was a symbol, a man millions placed their faith in. People admired him, believed in him, saw him as proof that perseverance could conquer anything. But when the truth came out, when years of deceit were finally exposed, it wasn't just about doping or breaking the rules of a sport. It was about betrayal on a deeply personal level. For those who believed in him, it felt like a wound that went far beyond cycling. It was a wound to trust itself. People hadn't just invested their admiration, they had invested their faith. And when that faith was betrayed, no amount of public confession or apology could repair it. The damage was already done, carved deep and permanent. Because trust, when fractured intentionally and over time, doesn't heal simply because someone decides they're ready to tell the truth. It transforms. It's never the same again. When you trust someone, a partner, a friend, a colleague, you give them something irreplaceable. You hand over a part of your inner world. You let them in, believing they'll guard what matters most to you. But when they betray that, through lies, infidelity, disloyalty, or deliberate harm, they reveal exactly who they are. They show you that their loyalty was conditional, that their integrity was already compromised long before you discovered the truth. And this is where so many of us struggle, because we want to believe in second chances. We want to believe that remorse can rewrite history, that with time, effort, and apology, things can go back to how they once were. But deep down, we know the truth. They can't. The bond is changed. The innocence is gone. The mind no longer sees them the same way, no matter how much the heart wants to. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask us to be blind to this. It asks us to see it clearly. It teaches us to view people not as we wish they were, but as they are. Marcus Aurelius once warned us not to obsess over the wrongs done to us, but to focus on our response. And the Stoic response to broken trust isn't revenge. It isn't desperate reconciliation. It's self-preservation. It's knowing when to step back, when to protect your peace, and when to walk away, quietly, firmly, without apology or explanation. Because here's a hard psychological truth. Once someone breaks your trust, your mind will never see them through the same lens again. Even if you say you've forgiven them, even if you try to rebuild, a quiet voice remains, whispering, "Can I trust them? Are they lying again? Will they hurt me once more?" And that constant questioning corrodes everything. It turns every interaction into a silent tug-of-war between hope and suspicion. Living in that space, where you're always second-guessing, is exhausting. It drains your emotional energy, steals your peace of mind, and traps you in a cycle of waiting for the next betrayal. Because once someone shows you they are capable of betrayal, believe them. Seneca once said, "He who spares the guilty punishes the innocent." When you keep forgiving someone who has deliberately shattered your trust, you are not doing them a kindness. You are wounding yourself. You are punishing your instincts. You are silencing the wisdom inside you, the quiet voice that knows you deserve better. By keeping them in your life, you send yourself a message that your pain is negotiable, that your standards can be ignored, that your worth can be traded for the illusion of connection. But that isn't strength. That isn't virtue. That is self-betrayal. Some will say forgiveness is noble, that giving people second chances makes us strong. But Stoicism never called for blind forgiveness. It calls for clear vision, for understanding that mercy without boundaries is not compassion, it's surrender. Forgiveness is not blindness, it's wisdom in action. From what we've learned so far, Stoicism doesn't reject forgiveness. It redefines it. It calls for wisdom and discernment. Forgiveness, when offered to someone who has made a genuine mistake, can be a beautiful act of compassion, an expression of strength, not weakness. But when forgiveness is handed to someone who has consciously chosen to betray, deceive, or disregard your trust, it's no longer compassion. It becomes weakness disguised as virtue. I'm not telling you this because it's easy. Walking away from someone you once trusted feels like tearing out a piece of your own soul. But sometimes that pain is the price of peace. Because keeping that person close, letting them stay, means allowing them to slowly erode what's left of your dignity, your stability, and your self-respect. The strongest act you can take when trust is broken is to face the truth, fully, without denial, and move forward without them. It hurts, yes, but the pain of truth is always lighter than the poison of illusion. The reality is simple, even if it's hard to accept. If they truly valued you, they never would have betrayed you. If they were truly loyal, you wouldn't have to question their actions. The hours you spend analyzing, doubting, waiting for them to change are hours stolen from your own growth and happiness. Stoicism calls us to live in alignment with truth, even when that truth cuts deep. Because truth, no matter how brutal, always brings freedom. And the greatest act of self-respect is knowing when to let go, not with anger, not with hatred, but with clarity. You walk away not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Trust, once shattered by deliberate betrayal, should never be given freely again. You can still choose civility. You can wish them well from a distance, but you must never invite them back into the sacred space they already proved they could not honor. Betrayal is a cruel teacher, but a wise one. It hardens us, sharpens us, and reveals what truly matters. Because not everyone deserves a second chance, and not every apology deserves acceptance. Disloyalty and deception are lines no Stoic should ever tolerate. Because your peace, your dignity, and your self-respect are worth infinitely more than any relationship built on ignoring the truth. If these lessons have resonated with you, if they've helped, you see your own situation more clearly. Let me know by commenting yes below. Your reflections matter, and I'd love to hear from you. 4. Betrayal of vulnerability, the weaponization of your deepest truths. There's another kind of betrayal, one far quieter, but far more devastating. It doesn't happen in a single moment. It creeps in slowly. It's the kind that begins when you open your heart to someone, when you let them see the parts of you no one else does, your fears, your insecurities, your memories buried so deep they still tremble when spoken aloud. You trust them to handle that truth with care, but then one day they turn those same truths against you. They use your vulnerability as a weapon to shame you, to control you, to make you question your worth. That isn't just a betrayal of trust. It's a betrayal of intimacy itself. It's a violation no Stoic, no human being who values peace and strength, should ever excuse. I once knew someone who opened up to their partner about childhood wounds, scars that shaped them, haunted them, the fears they had long buried. At first, the partner seemed compassionate, gentle, and supportive. They listened with empathy, promised safety. But as the relationship soured, those private truths became ammunition. Every confession, every moment of honesty was turned into a knife, thrown back during arguments, shouted in public, used to humiliate and diminish. That isn't just a fight that went too far. That is a deep violation of a sacred bond. When someone takes what you've shared in confidence, your pain, your shame, your insecurities, and twists it into a weapon, they commit a form of betrayal that cuts deeper than any physical wound. It's the moment you realize that the person you trusted most has used your own heart as their battlefield. In the last story, we saw how the deepest kind of betrayal isn't loud or sudden. It's quiet, intimate, and cruel. It happens when someone takes your honesty, your openness, and your pain and uses them as weapons. They saw your vulnerability not as a gift, but as a tool, something to manipulate, to control, to bend you to their will. And once that line is crossed, there is no going back. The Stoics understood this truth clearly. We can't control others, only ourselves, our responses, and our boundaries. Epictetus taught that we must guard our inner world, because not everyone deserves access to it. When someone betrays your vulnerability, they don't just lose your trust. They forfeit the right to ever hold that sacred space in your life again. To forgive them and keep them close is like handing your enemy a map to your soul, knowing full well they'll use it against you the next time it benefits them. This kind of betrayal is psychologically devastating because it cuts to the core of what makes us human. The need to be seen, to be understood, to be loved even in our flaws. We all long for that. Someone who knows our darkest truths and still chooses to stay. But when that trust is weaponized, it doesn't just shatter the relationship, it shatters our sense of safety in the world. And that is not something you should ever endure twice. Stoic wisdom doesn't tell us to hate the person who did this. It tells us to accept the truth of who they are and move forward with quiet dignity. We do not retaliate. We do not chase closure or beg for understanding. We simply walk away. Because the strongest response isn't to fight or to fix. It's to choose peace over pain, clarity over chaos. If someone has used your vulnerability against you once, trust that they will do it again, not because you are weak, but because they are. And there is no room for that in a life built on self-respect and inner strength. Never forgive the betrayal of your vulnerability. Forgive yourself for trusting the wrong person, for not seeing it sooner. Then walk away, gracefully but firmly. You owe it to yourself to protect your peace, to build a life where your deepest truths are sacred, and where only the worthy are allowed in. And there you have it. 4 forms of betrayal that no Stoic, no matter how calm or compassionate, should ever tolerate. Because some actions don't just cross a line, they burn the entire bridge, and once that bridge is gone, you don't stand there watching the flames. You walk away, head held high, peace intact, knowing that losing them wasn't a loss. It was liberation. Remember, protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. You've worked too hard to rebuild your strength, to reclaim your clarity, to let anyone's lies, disloyalty, or manipulation take up space in your mind for free. This is your life. Guard it as if it were priceless, because it is. If this message resonated with you, if you felt the sting of betrayal and you're ready to build unshakable emotional resilience, you're in the right place. Subscribe like this video and share your story in the comments below. Let's grow stronger together, wiser, calmer, and untouchable. And remember, the strongest move isn't revenge. It's walking away and never looking back. You've got this. See you in the next one.